Hogs from just utterly laying waste to the land. When they show up, buddy, it is bad news.
They're incredibly powerful, remarkably intelligent, and can charge through dense brush at speeds that rival a race car. These armored tanks of the forest fear neither thorny thickets nor predators armed with razor-sharp teeth. They are true masters of survival, turning what seems like an ordinary snout into a powerful tool and transforming their tusks into formidable weapons. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a closer look at the wild boar, one of the boldest and most adaptable animals in the natural world. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started. Wild boars are far more than just the wild ancestors of domestic pigs. They are true survival machines, weighing anywhere from 440 to 660 pounds and protected by coarse hair and a thick layer of fat that acts like natural armor. Their most fearsome weapons are their tusks, which constantly sharpen themselves through friction as they chew, creating natural blades that can be extremely dangerous. Found across a vast range stretching from the forests of Europe to the tropical jungles of Asia, wild boars are excellent swimmers, capable of traveling dozens of miles and eating almost anything they can find. Their diet includes roots, seeds, insects, small animals, and even carrion. It is this combination of strength, adaptability, and an omnivorous appetite that has made them one of the most formidable wild animals on Earth. Deep in the wilderness, few predators are more feared than wolves. Yet when a wolf pack decides to hunt a wild boar, the outcome is far from guaranteed. Wild boars typically live in family groups led by experienced females that work together to protect their young. Older males, on the other hand, often live alone and are opponents that many predators would rather avoid. Wolves try to wear their prey down through long pursuits, but wild boars possess astonishing endurance. When danger approaches, they can burst through dense thorny vegetation that is difficult for their pursuers to navigate. With their wedge-shaped heads and incredibly powerful neck muscles, wild boars slice through thick brush like living arrows, often leaving their predators far behind. But the most fascinating moment comes when a wild boar decides it no longer wants to run. Instead of surrendering, it suddenly turns and launches a counterattack. Imagine a 440-pound wall of muscle charging straight at you at nearly 25 miles per hour. A single slash from those razor-sharp tusks can inflict devastating injuries. Wolves understand this risk very well, which is why they often choose to back away and search for prey that presents a much lower chance of injury. As wild boar populations grow and habitats become more crowded, conflicts with humans become increasingly common. In a single night, a group of wild boars can turn carefully maintained farmland into a scene of destruction. Using their powerful snouts, they tear through fields of corn, potatoes, and many other crops. The problem goes beyond property damage. Wild boars can also carry dangerous diseases, including African swine fever. These diseases have the potential to cause severe losses in the livestock industry and threaten food security across entire regions. For this reason, wild boars are considered a serious biological threat in several parts of the world. The conflict between humans and wild boars has become so intense that traditional hunting methods are often no longer enough to keep their numbers under control. Wild boars reproduce rapidly, and in areas where populations become too dense, authorities are forced to adopt more aggressive management strategies. Across many parts of the United States and Australia, large-scale trapping systems have been introduced to manage entire sounders of wild boars across vast landscapes that are difficult to monitor using conventional methods. These modern traps combine surveillance cameras, bait stations, and remote-triggered gates to significantly improve efficiency while reducing the animal's suspicion. Nature has created a survival machine that is nearly perfect, and in response, humans continue to develop increasingly sophisticated strategies to match its resilience. That is the story of the wild boar, one of the toughest, strongest, and most adaptable animals in the wild. For years, wild boars have been one of the most concerning invasive species in North America. But in the Canadian province of Alberta, the situation is unfolding in a way few people expected. Herds of wild boars numbering anywhere from 20 to 50 animals have been appearing in broad daylight, crossing farmland, moving into small towns, and leaving chaos behind. In some areas, the damage has exceeded $800,000 per year. Even more concerning is that most traditional control methods have failed to provide long-term results. Farmers have installed fences, wildlife management teams have organized control hunts, and even metal traps have been deployed across multiple locations. Yet the wild boars keep coming back. Surveillance cameras installed near farms and industrial areas across Alberta have captured remarkable footage. Wild boars frequently travel along drainage corridors bordering forested areas and appear in residential neighborhoods shortly after dark. In many locations, the ground has been torn up so severely that even the frozen soil beneath has been overturned, leaving long trenches across fields. Even more troubling, their presence has contributed to an increase in traffic collisions on rural roads. After analyzing large amount of camera data, biologists realized something important. Wild boars are not simply entering human environments. They are actively incorporating human-developed areas into their movement networks. But what caused this shift in behavior? For an omnivorous animal like the wild boar, human-managed areas represent an enormous food source. This becomes especially evident during winter, when temperatures plunge and natural conditions become harsh. As food sources become buried beneath thick layers of ice and snow, wild boars are forced to seek out more accessible alternatives. Following a sudden cold snap, 3 separate groups of wild boars appeared on a farmer's property within just 48 hours. At first, the farmer attempted to stop them with sturdy steel fencing. But the boars quickly discovered weaknesses in the structure. In just a single week, one herd was capable of breaking through multiple fences, traditional metal traps also began showing serious limitations. When biologists reviewed tracking data, they discovered a fascinating behavioral pattern. Within each herd, 1 or 2 individuals often act as scouts. These animals move ahead of the group, constantly sniffing and observing their surroundings. The moment they detect an unfamiliar scent or an unusual disturbance in the soil, they immediately retreat. The rest of the herd then changes direction and avoids the area entirely. This collective awareness is one of the main reasons traditional control methods continue to fail. Based on these observations, wildlife managers reached an important conclusion. Targeting individual animals was unlikely to solve the problem in the long run. To be effective, they needed to target entire herds at once. That realization led to the development of large circular trapping systems. Cameras are installed around the trap to monitor herd activity in real time. Operators watch remotely and wait until every animal has entered the enclosure before activating the gate. At the right moment, the drop gate is triggered remotely, slamming shut and locking almost instantly. While traditional hunting methods often achieve only about 10 to 20% effectiveness because many animals survive and continue reproducing. Large-scale trapping systems can be far more successful by capturing entire herds in a single operation. In areas where this behavior-based strategy has been implemented, wild boar populations have gradually begun to decline. More importantly, the results have proven to be long-lasting rather than temporary, creating a more sustainable approach to population control.
Like clockwork.
Imagine a farmer stepping outside at sunrise only to discover that an entire season's worth of hard work had vanished overnight. Crops torn apart, fences flattened, and the ground looking like it had been ripped through by a massive bulldozer. The culprits were wild hogs, millions of them spreading across the American heartland and causing more than $2.5 billion in damage every year. But out in West Texas, locals developed a control method so clever that it quickly grabbed national attention, even sparking heated debates among politicians who almost never agree on anything. Last summer, a farmer near Highway 87 was shocked to find more than 50 acres of land destroyed in a single night. Security cameras captured around 30 wild hogs, each weighing over 220 pounds, violently tearing up the soil with their sharp tusks. One careless move and these animals can charge straight at a person with terrifying speed. This is no longer just a Texas problem. From the East Coast to the West Coast, wild hogs are destroying pastureland, contaminating water sources, and spreading dangerous diseases that threaten both livestock and humans. While lawmakers continued arguing, farmers around Lubbock had already run out of patience. They turned to a technique capable of wiping out entire sounders in one silent night: massive corral trap systems. It all started with reading the signs left behind on the ground: tracks, torn up soil, and muddy creek banks where the hogs gathered after dark. One farmer identified a hotspot along the Brazos River where the hogs showed up almost every single night.
Like clockwork, Ark.
He built a giant circular trap nearly 40 feet wide and about 5.5 feet tall, welded together from heavy steel panels strong enough to withstand high-speed impacts. Inside, he scattered corn and ripe fruit as bait, but he didn't close the gate right away. For an entire week, the hogs were allowed to enter and leave freely until they fully believed the trap was completely safe, like an unlimited midnight buffet. Then came the critical moment. Sitting in his living room, the farmer monitored every movement through his phone. The instant the last hog stepped fully inside the enclosure, sometimes more than 40 animals at once, he tapped the screen. The steel gate slammed shut immediately. Panicked hogs crashed violently into the walls, creating deafening bangs in the middle of the night, but the entire structure held firm. In just one night, 32 wild hogs were captured, and the field was finally saved. In 2024 alone, the Lubbock area removed more than 60,000 hogs using this method. But the battle is far from over. A single sow can produce 2 litters a year, with 6 to 10 piglets each time. That's why farmers no longer rely on corral traps alone. They now combine electric fencing, motion-activated lights, and nighttime surveillance cameras. The results have been dramatic. Crop damage dropped by as much as 35% after only one season. It proved that strategy and patience can sometimes be far more effective than brute force. Meanwhile, the controversy hasn't gone away. Some recreational hunters argue that large-scale trapping systems are ruining their sport. Ecologists warn that wild hogs are causing severe damage to native ecosystems. And lawmakers still can't agree on whether more funding should be poured into these control programs. But for the farmers, there's no time left to wait. They quietly continue protecting the land their families have worked for generations. And it's not happening only in Texas. Similar stories are unfolding in South Carolina, Kansas, and dozens of other states across America. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Wild hogs have proven that they are not only incredibly powerful, but also highly intelligent, and the fight against them will remain a major challenge for many years to come. If you caught only a quick glimpse of the dark patch at the far end of the field, you might think it was nothing more than a cluster of low trees swaying in the night wind. But the farmers of Texas knew the truth was far different. Hidden inside that darkness were massive feral hogs, creatures that had turned hundreds of acres of farmland into a battlefield in just a few hours. They appeared without warning, tore through cornfields, destroyed fences, then vanished before sunrise. For months, these animals had avoided every attempt to stop them. They moved like ghosts, leaving behind only tracks, mud, and growing destruction. For 6 straight months, multiple control teams tried every possible method. Cameras were installed across the area. Movement routes were carefully marked. Traps were placed at the most strategic locations. Yet the hogs always seemed to stay one step ahead of the humans. They changed their travel patterns, approached food sources from different directions, and quickly avoided any place that showed signs of danger. That was why, instead of rushing into action, the team chose to rely on their most important weapon this time: patience. For several days in a row, fermented corn was scattered around the trap sites. Its scent drifted through the night air, slowly drawing in small groups of hogs. The unusual part was that the trap gates always remained open. There were no engine noises, no falling doors, no signs that might trigger suspicion. Night after night, the hogs grew more confident. They began walking deeper inside, feeding comfortably before leaving as if the place were completely safe. On the decisive night, camera systems positioned in multiple locations simultaneously transmitted live footage back to the monitoring screens. At the first site, the smaller hogs had already moved completely inside the control zone. At another location, several massive boars were slowly approaching the bait. But the most important target still had not appeared. Inside the truck cabin, almost no one spoke. Every eye remained fixed on the glowing screens cutting through the darkness. No one wanted to ruin the operation with a reckless decision. Time passed with unbearable slowness. 1 hour. 2 hours. Then 3 in the morning. Finally, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. The enormous lead boar crossed the final boundary and stepped deep into the enclosure. Across every monitor, the entire sounder was finally in position. At that instant, silence inside the cabin became absolute. Fingers rested on the controls, ready. Everyone understood there would only be one chance. The signal was triggered. In an instant, multiple trap gates slammed shut at the same time. The violent sound of metal crashing echoed through the night, shattering the silence of the Texas countryside. The hogs suddenly charged in every direction searching for an escape, but every exit had already been sealed. At multiple locations, the traps completed their task simultaneously. What had failed for months was finally accomplished in only a few seconds. But the operation was far from over. The moment the traps were activated, the control team immediately moved toward each site. Under the glare of headlights and flashlight beams, they had to inspect the entire system as quickly as possible. The sounds of thrashing animals echoed across the fields as the trapped hogs desperately searched for a way out. Every step forward demanded absolute concentration. In the thick darkness, there was no room for mistakes. Only when the first rays of sunlight appeared over the horizon did the true scale of the operation finally become clear. From up close, the massive feral hogs revealed exactly why they were capable of causing such enormous destruction. Their huge bodies, incredible strength, and remarkable adaptability had made them one of the greatest threats facing agricultural regions across Texas. Six control sites, countless hours of continuous surveillance, and a carefully prepared plan had finally produced the result they wanted. This was not a victory of brute force. It was a victory built on observation, calculation, and patience in the long struggle between humans and the unwanted invaders of Texas land.
Not fast enough. This is body cam footage.
Surprised by wild hogs. They say their animals are tearing up their lawn.
And now to this, at 4 residents terrorized by wild hogs. They say their animals are tearing up their lawns. At night, the hogs move in large herds, tearing up grasslands, breaking through fences, and leaving long trails of mud across the property.
Exactly in Eric Mendez's future.
They'll come and they'll just take chunks of it.
Experts say Texas is currently home to the largest population of wild hogs in the United States, reproducing at such a rapid rate that many areas are becoming nearly impossible to control. When nature no longer has enough predators to keep them in check, the conflict between humans and wild hogs has become more intense than ever. If we delayed any longer, the damage would almost certainly spiral beyond control. So that same night, we began deploying a trap system throughout the area. The goal was not simply to drive them away temporarily, but to cut off the herd's movement routes before the situation became even more serious. In the thick darkness of the forest bordering the Texas farm, our flashlights illuminated only a few steps ahead. Every movement was quick, precise, and carefully executed. Once everything was in place, we left, leaving the trap sitting silently in the stillness of the forest.
Okay, I actually think that was a good idea, not sweating, because if you...
That night, the first trap was triggered. When we returned early the next morning, we could already hear chaotic noises echoing from inside, even from a considerable distance away. Loud crashes, growls, and violent banging against the steel frame rang through the cold morning fog. As we moved closer, the trapped wild hogs began charging back and forth inside the confined space. There was no time to hesitate. We immediately took control of the situation step by step, dealing with each animal decisively to avoid any possible risk. After finishing at the first location, another trap was placed along the eastern edge of the forest, where the tall grass had been flattened and tracks covered the ground. At first, the location seemed absolutely perfect. But by the following morning, things had not gone as expected. The trap had been triggered, yet only a few hogs remained trapped inside, while most of the herd had escaped. Freshly torn ground surrounding the area showed that the animals had become far more cautious. That mistake forced us to completely change our approach for the next trap placements.
Back up. We have 3 that when we baited.
But everything truly escalated at the final trap, set beside a deep lake hidden within the pine forest. It was the largest water source in the area, and the wild hogs returned there almost every night. Everything had been carefully prepared before we left, but no one could have predicted what happened next. That night, my phone suddenly received an alert from the camera mounted on the trap. The moment I opened the live feed, I immediately realized the situation had gone far beyond our original expectations. There were so many wild hogs packed inside that they nearly filled the entire steel enclosure.
All right, here.
Violent impacts echoed through the distance. The steel frame shook continuously under the weight of the panicked herd trapped inside. Without wasting another second, I immediately headed back into the forest that same night. The closer I got to the trap site, the heavier the atmosphere became. Chaotic noises echoed across the pitch-black woods. When my flashlight swept across the trees ahead, the entire scene finally came into view more clearly than ever before.
All right, here we go, guys. We got the gate open. Hey, 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 hey. Yeah. Yeah. You're all over my phone.
That I could not afford a rush in that situation. Even the smallest mistake could send everything out of control instantly. So I kept my distance, carefully watched every movement, and began handling the situation one step at a time with complete focus. The work continued for hours in an atmosphere so tense it was almost suffocating. Only after the last wild hog had been removed from the trap did the forest finally begin to fall silent.
Come on. Kick them around, son. Keep going. Holler at them. Get in there. Hey, get in there. Probably another one.
When I looked down at the fresh mud surrounding the edge of the lake, I understood one thing clearly. This confrontation was far from over. Out there were still fresh tracks, movement routes we had not yet monitored, and forests we had never even stepped into. That night's operation may have ended, but the battle against the wild hogs in Texas had clearly only just begun.
Under the moon's glow, the wild boar ruled.
Take a good look at this mess. The moment a pack of wild hogs crossed through David's fence, their fate was practically sealed. While his family was away on vacation, these unwanted intruders turned the property into a complete disaster zone. The yard was torn apart. The grass ripped to pieces, and everything looked like it had been hit by a violent overnight raid. For any homeowner, coming back to a scene like this would be enough to push their patience to the limit. But instead of simply getting angry, David chose to respond with strategy. He carefully began planning how to capture every single hog responsible for destruction. What David was dealing with in his own front yard was really just a small glimpse of a much bigger crisis happening across America. As hungry wild hogs move from suburban neighborhoods into commercial farmland, the financial damage escalates fast. According to USDA, feral hogs cause more than $2.5 billion in agricultural damage every year in the United States. In a single night, one large sounder can destroy between 10 and 20 acres of farmland, leaving farmers with losses exceeding $12,000 in only a few hours. That's exactly why professional trapping systems are no longer optional for many landowners. They've become an absolute necessity. What makes this even more interesting is that these hogs picked the worst possible property to invade. They unknowingly wandered onto land owned by David, a man who built an incredibly effective homemade trapping system. Even though it was completely self-built, the trap could easily compete with expensive commercial systems on the market. The entire structure was welded together using heavy-duty livestock steel panels, reinforced with solid barriers that formed a steel fortress standing over 5 feet tall. Once the massive gate dropped, there was almost no chance for a trapped hog to escape. Powered by a reliable electric winch, the system operated like a near-zero escape machine. As nightfall approached, David prepared what would become the hog's final meal. He used a powerful fermented corn mixture, the kind of bait wild hogs find almost impossible to resist. But the most important part of the operation was the infrared trail camera watching everything remotely. Wild hogs are extremely cautious animals and notoriously difficult to trap, so David patiently monitored every movement through the live feed. He didn't rush to trigger the gate too early. Instead, he allowed the entire sounded end of the trap and feed comfortably. Only when greed completely overpowered their caution did David finally hit the electronic trigger. Within a split second, the massive steel gate slammed shut. Just like that, the game was over. Even after the trap successfully closed, David continued handling the situation with patience and control. Instead of panicking the animals, he calmly guided them into a specialized transport trailer. This approach not only reduced stress on the captured hogs, but also made the entire transport process safer and far more efficient. In states like Texas, licensed hog buyers will often drive directly to farms to purchase mature animals. That allows trappers to recover their bait and operational costs while helping landowners eliminate a serious problem from their property. This is a highly practical, effective, and incredibly smart method. Not only does it outsmart the natural instinct of wild hogs, but also solves the problem in a cleaner, faster, and more sustainable way over the long term. For David, controlling feral hogs isn't just about protecting his own land. It's about helping other farmers who are suffering major losses every single day. Now, put yourself in the shoes of an American farmer. Imagine walking outside tomorrow morning and seeing your entire field destroyed overnight. If you were facing losses like this, what would you do? Would you spend the extra time live trapping the entire sounder to keep the area free from blood and warning scents? Or would you hire professionals to remove them immediately before the damage spreads even further? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'll be reading and replying in the next video.
Draw, drop, boom. That's it.
Imagine stepping outside at night with nothing but a flashlight believing you're protecting everything you worked for, only to suddenly realize you're no longer the predator. You're almost the prey. If you want to understand how one simple idea began changing a battle many people thought could never be won, stay until the end. And before we continue, make sure to subscribe, because what you're about to discover could completely change the way you see nature and animal intelligence. In October 2023, a farmer in East Texas experienced one of the most shocking moments of his life. In just a single night, 70% of his corn crop was destroyed with only 3 weeks left before harvest. The corn stalks were completely crushed, forming strange trails that looked like roads carved straight through the field. Some ears of corn had been completely eaten, while others were scattered across the ground. The soil, torn apart by dozens of hooves, turned into deep mud. What had once been a healthy field ready for harvest now looked like a disaster zone after a major storm. The farmer estimated the damage at more than $40,000. And even worse, his insurance did not cover destruction caused by wild animals.
Dich der lästigen Keilerkonkurrenz erwehren.
Farmers eventually realized that truly reducing the wild hog population required more than simply chasing them away. It required removing them effectively. Everything started with bait, and not just any bait worked. They discovered that fermentation, known as sour cream, was incredibly effective. The fermentation process created a powerful smell that could be detected from long distances, and the mild alcohol content seemed to make the bait even more attractive to the animals. For days, sometimes even weeks, farmers placed the bait in the exact same location. The hogs found it, fed on it, returned repeatedly, and slowly began trusting the area. They developed a routine, started feeling safe, and that was when the next stage began. Little by little, farmers started building structures around the bait site. A large enclosure made from heavy metal panels was set up with an open entrance. The hogs walked in, ate, and left without encountering any danger. Meanwhile, the farmers observed everything, using cameras to identify each animal in the group, count their numbers, study their habits, and track the exact times they appeared, waiting until every member of the sound showed up. Unlike older automatic traps, the modern systems were remotely controlled. Cameras streamed live footage directly to the farmer's phone, allowing them to watch every movement in real time and wait until every single hog was inside before triggering the gate. With one command, the heavy door slammed shut, trapping the entire group. The shift from automatic traps to human-controlled systems with real-time monitoring dramatically improved effectiveness. When done correctly, this method could capture nearly 100% of sounder and, most importantly, avoid leaving behind survivors that would later learn how to avoid threats. Within only a few generations, a single bloodline can grow into hundreds of hogs. Because of this, experts believe at least 70% of the population must be removed every year just to stop the numbers from continuing to rise. To actually reduce the population, that number needs to exceed 80 to 90%, an extremely difficult goal, especially without large-scale cooperation. But the problem is even more complicated than that. Wild hogs possess biological traits that make them incredibly difficult to control. They're omnivores capable of eating almost anything. They adapt quickly to different environments, and their thick skin and powerful muscles make rapid removal difficult. Most importantly, their short reproductive cycle allows populations to recover extremely fast after losses. Humans themselves have also made the situation far worse. In many cases, the hogs did not naturally spread into certain areas. They were brought there by people. Some individuals, mostly hunters, illegally transported and released wild hogs to create new hunting opportunities. That single decision accelerated the expansion of the species far beyond its natural limits. The result was a fast-moving, chaotic invasion that many regions were completely unprepared for, lacking the experience, equipment, coordination, and strategies needed to respond effectively. But perhaps the most disturbing part of all was something else entirely, something farmers and hunters slowly began noticing over time.
In southern and southeastern Brazil, the damage caused by wild boars has become a serious burden on agriculture. A single herd may contain only a few dozen animals, but in heavily infested areas, farmers have reported seeing hundreds move through cropland in a single night. When they enter the fields at 2 in the morning, they don't destroy things randomly. They follow familiar paths, head straight for food sources, and tear through the soil with incredible force. What frustrates farmers the most is how well these animals remember. Wild boars are not easily fooled twice. If a trap is placed in the wrong spot, the entire herd may avoid that area for a long time. If a fence has a weak point, one large boar will test it, break through, and the rest will follow. The younger ones learn from the older animals, meaning every failed attempt by humans only makes the herd more cautious. Conventional methods have been tried almost everywhere. Electric fences can work for a while, but they are expensive to maintain and require a stable power supply. Cage traps only catch a few animals at a time, while large corral traps often need weeks of baiting, cameras, and remote trigger systems. Hunting has worked in some regions, and in certain places helicopters have even been used, but the costs are extremely high and usually reduce only a small portion of the population. Using chemicals or poison creates even greater risks. In an open ecosystem, it is difficult to target only the species being controlled. Birds, native wildlife, farm dogs, and even water sources can all be affected. Many farmers wanted a solution that was more sustainable, less dependent on technology, and didn't turn their land into a toxic battlefield. That is when an idea that seemed almost ancient began attracting attention again: digging defensive trenches around farmland. At first, the method sounds almost too simple to believe. No electricity, no bait, no remote-controlled equipment. Just a trench deep and wide enough that wild boars cannot cross it safely. Their bodies are front-heavy, with short legs that are poorly suited for jumping across wide gaps. A ditch roughly 1 to 1.5 meters deep, and at least a meter wide, can become an invisible wall along the edge of a field. The first farmers who tried this approach were often seen as strange, almost as if they were bringing medieval tactics into modern agriculture. But when wild boars reached their usual routes, the results surprised many people. The animals would stop at the edge of the trench, probe the soil with their snouts, test the slope, and then most of them would turn back. Some of the more reckless ones fell in, only to struggle climbing out because the steep walls offered little grip. However, digging trenches is not as simple as bringing in an excavator and cutting a line around a field. For the system to work long-term, the trench walls must be steep enough to stop the animals while remaining stable, especially during heavy rains. If water collects at the bottom, the trench can turn into stagnant pools that attract mosquitoes, cause erosion, and create contamination problems if trapped animals are not removed quickly. That is why the farms that use this method successfully usually include drainage systems, crossing points, warning signs, and reflective markers as part of the design. The upfront cost is certainly not small, especially for farms that stretch across several kilometers. But compared to multiple seasons of destroyed crops, the cost of seeds, fertilizer, fuel, labor, and debt carried into the next harvest, a long-term protective structure starts to make more sense. In some areas, farming cooperatives have even pooled resources together to dig trenches around neighboring properties. helping entire communities create larger defensive zones. Even so, defensive trenches are not a perfect solution for every landscape. On flat terrain, the method works extremely well. But in steep, rocky areas or regions bordering dense forests, the cost and difficulty rise quickly. The biggest lesson from the trenches in Brazil is that farmers are no longer just chasing wild boars through the night. They are redefining the boundary between their crops and the threat itself. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment and follow the channel to discover more ways farmers around the world protect their harvests.